So you wanted to go ahead
Yeah,
and do an
so,
intro.
oh my gosh, welcome everybody. And I'm just so honored to see everybody this evening. Of course, I'm sad that we are not able to do our typical ladies' night, which for the past 3 years have been amazing. And, usually done in the fall, but with the way things are with the pandemic, we decided this would be the best way to go. So really honored to see everybody, and thank you so much. And again, I hope everybody, oh wow, look at everybody. Hope everybody had a wonderful day today and full belly and are relaxed and ready to maybe have some aha moments. That's what I'm hoping. And I see there are a few men, which is amazing. So welcome to you guys. Many of you know me. For those that know me, know that there's a lot of, I'm very passionate about specific ways of healing, which we're going to speak about some of that this evening. For those that don't know me, if you have any questions or concerns, and you don't want to reach out this evening, please don't hesitate to reach out at any time. My cell phone, email, text me at any time to reach out and ask let me know any concerns or questions you have. Everybody can hear me okay? Okay. Do you want me to talk about this now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Or do you want to introduce this now? Okay. So I wanted to just mention a few things. First of all, I wanted to start with one of the phrases that I'm very, very passionate about, and that is one size does not fit all. So it's really how allopathic medicine works, that one size does fit all. In the way that I feel we should truly heal, whether it's gut issues, anxiety, asthma, migraines, it really doesn't matter. But we need to, what really does matter is that we have to look at each and every one of us as individuals and what are our unique needs. And there's specific ways to find that out. So one size does not fit all. We're also special and unique. Another phrase that I say often that a lot of the people who work with me hear me say is that the devil's in the detail, right? So one small little detail, like drinking 2 cups of coffee every day, can really make a difference in how you feel, particularly, your gut and your brain health, your emotional wellness. So the devil's in the detail. So with that in mind, I had made I don't know if you can see this well, but it was sent to each of you. It's a puzzle. It's a page with a puzzle pieces on it. Did you all see that? Okay, so there's 12 puzzle pieces. Really, we're a big puzzle.
Real quick, so for whoever's shaking their head no or didn't receive, when you joined, there's an email that went out. So if you haven't received that email, just be in touch with somehow us, right? There'll be a contact sheet at the end, but Dr. Danny, the store, or myself, and Taylor, and we can email that. There's a lot of resources that we want you guys to have that we spend time putting together for you. So we want to make sure you guys get those resources. One of them is this puzzle sheet that my mom made. So,
and on the puzzle sheet, if you look at the top left puzzle, I wrote MTHFR, which I'm going to speak a little bit more about in a few minutes. But you'll see underneath that, it says detox challenge. That would be a digestive challenge. And nutrient deficiencies with MTHFR. MTHFR is a gene mutation. Again, I'm going to speak a little bit more about it in a few minutes. But you'll see that piece of the puzzle is connected to anxiety and depression and insomnia. And then that's connected to gut challenges, which we can really ascertain what's going on in the gut really well with a test that we do called GI map. We can see whether someone has leaky gut, leaky brain with a zonulin test. And maybe there's pathogens like H. pylori or low stomach acid. All that is connected to some symptoms like bloated and acid reflux or inflammation, which goes into immune challenges, and it goes on. And you can see how these pieces of the puzzle connect together, and we can really look at those details. Again, the devil's in the detail, specifically for us women who we have a lot of intuition. I think women, if I can make a generalization, that we listen to our gut well. And so those little, all these pieces of the puzzle matter. So I really want to speak really speak about MTHFR a little bit more specifically. How many of you can raise your hand know what MTHFR is or have dealt with it? I see a few hands. So it means MTHFR stands for methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase. You don't have to know that really. Just know that it's a part of our gene makeup, and all living things have DNA in our cells, right? You know a little bit about DNA. I don't want to get real sciencey, but our body contains about 50 trillion tiny cells, which is amazing. And each of those cells have instructions in it, right? These instructions that make us up, that make me, Dr. Noah, all of you beautiful faces out there, who you are in the instructions are in your DNA. And the instructions are encoded in the DNA. Now, many of us have mutations in DNA. And what does that mean? Well, it does mean that there is a change in the DNA. And I wanted to just really talk about this in a little bit, give you more information about that. But first, we want to go over a few other, I think Dr. Noah has some more information first to go over, and then I'll get back to MTHFR.
Yeah, so we're still doing the intro. So I'm going to share my screen. I put together some slides. And everything again is being recorded, and God willing, I'll be able to shrink this down to a reasonable file size and then share it with you as well as a resource. But in doing the intro, just wanted to share my screen. So we're going to go away for a minute and go ahead and go through the slides. So let me just do this. Okay, we should be there now. And let me pull up the slides. It's there. Let's see, slides.
There they are. Woo-hoo!
And start the presentation. Okay. So tonight, it's still loading. Okay, so tonight is ladies' night. All right. Now I'm not a lady, but I'm deeply cognizant of how important and special women are. I'm always humbled. I have a lot of female patients. I have a traditional chiropractic practice as well as what I do remotely. I have a wife. I have a mom. I have a sister. But regardless, I do have a practice where I get a lot of referrals from a midwifery center. And so I always say I've never been a pregnant woman. I've never been a woman, but I still feel very humbled and honored. And I do the best I can to understand and to work with specific needs of all my patients, and of course women, especially in tonight's discussion. So tonight's the 4th annual Ladies' Night. The topic is women and the gut-brain connection, and it's a discussion emphasizing a whole body approach to common and yet very complex digestive health concerns that women experience, taking into consideration foundational wellness of body and mind. Again, body, gut, mind, brain. So just a real quick who we are. Dr. Danny's my mom. She is an expert in holistic nutrition, 40 years in the business of nutraceutical research and getting her PhD in skin health and holistic nutrition. And she's an expert. For decades, she's been analyzing her clients' hair for heavy metal detox. And then, of course, myself, I was raised in her home. I have a traditional degree in chiropractic, which is essentially pain management without drugs and surgery. And then I'm a little bit more of a cerebral individual. So I spent time postdoctorate studying, and I have an interest in chemistry, so biochemistry. And it led me down the path of functional medicine, which is kind of like a buzzword for foundational wellness. And I got very interested in studying the bacteria in the gut and the intestines. Now, women, of course, have a special microbiome that men don't have, and that's the vaginal microbiome. It's a whole other world that I have not studied, but all people have intestinal microbiomes, oral microbiomes, skin microbiomes, lung microbiomes. And the more research we do in the bacterial world, the more we learn about how important that interface is for all of our unique health conditions. So tonight we're going to focus a little bit on women specifically and gut health. So that's who we are, and this is who you guys are, essentially, as a generalization. So these are statistics from the American College of Gastroenterology. It's common knowledge. I did cite it at the top, but long story short, there are a lot of conversations around gut health, but apparently there's a survey that shows that most women don't want to talk about that. They'll talk about other uncomfortable things with their friends, but they won't talk about gut issues, so to speak. So we wanted to kind of begin the conversation tonight, and just kind of put it out there that we're aware that people are having these issues. They're calling our practice. We're helping people. We're changing lives. And so specifically, something else that's interesting is the different rates of impact that gut issues or other mental issues have on women specifically. So chronic constipation is more common in women than it is to men, and it tends to worsen with age. We'll talk about some of the effects that menopause has, specifically on gut health and motility. Irritable bowel syndrome, which is IBS, occurs 2 to 6 times more often in women than men. That's a lot more often, and that's a very common diagnosis. A lot of these are symptoms, but nonetheless, that's a very common diagnosis. Inflammatory bowel disease, which is more severe as far as the inflammatory component, genetic component, and the possible ramifications on day-to-day life. But people might be aware of Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. It's more frequent in women than men with a ratio of about 2 to 1. So for every 3 cases, 2 of those cases are women, and they might have a milder course, which is interesting if they've given birth to several children. So we know that the hormones of pregnancy have an effect. So that's all very specific to women. Men don't have those types of changes with pregnancy, of course. So just very interesting and unique to see how personalized, expression of disease or discomfort can be. Another bunch of these statistics is that colon cancer is the number 3rd cancer for women, and colon cancer, really, like any cancer, is a normal process out of control of cellular division. And how does a normal process get out of control? Well, there's a shift in the communication and the cellular again, sort of the cellular growth. And so those communication changes and DNA changes can happen because of the environment that the tissue and the cells are living in. So for example, colon cancer specifically obviously is affecting the colon cells, and colon cells, are receiving all of their cellular energy and a lot of their information for health from the bacteria in the small intestine, which provides the fuel for those cells. So a colon protective program, especially for women, would include optimizing the microbiome and making sure that specifically Akkermansia, which is one particular bacteria, Akkermansia muciniphila. It's one particular type of bacteria that I would say might be more impactful for women, and more important that women have that bacteria cultured than men if they're going to be suffering, so to speak, in general, from a statistic standpoint of colon cancer more often. So,
and we see a lot of women who are very low in Akkermansia when tested.
Sometimes low and sometimes high, and it is common. It is common. It seems to be in the American population, the diversity of our gut microbiome is where the pinch is happening. A lot of us have plenty of lacto and bifido bacteria, which is more common to find in food, but the more complex ecosystem that the microbiome needs to thrive, the diversity is not there. So it's almost like monocropping, right? Like we have a beautiful Midwestern part of our country, and if we monocrop those crops, then they're very prone to disease and viruses and blights. If we have a diversity of crops, it's more resilient, but you can't make as much food for people. So there's always give and take. But anyway, I do want you to think about the bacterial environment as an ecosystem. It's very much what it is. Anatomically, women have a slower gallbladder emptying than men, so they're twice as likely to experience gallstones. Additionally, women have other anatomical changes that are different, such as the esophageal sphincter can become more lax in women more commonly than men.
And so more women, a lot of women are on PPIs. Of course, many of you may know someone or yourself who have been on a PPI,
which is a proton pump inhibitor medication. I think these days some are over the counter, most are probably still prescribed, but they have diverse impact and dramatic impact on the microbiome. And again, there may be a time and a place for that, and medication, of course, I've had medication save my life, but nonetheless, we have to also be aware of the impact that it's having and try to keep ourselves resilient from the side effects and do repair if we can on the other side of taking those medications and not using them long term. That's really the problem, when the short term band-aid becomes the long-term fix. That's a problem. There are other areas. Women have different enzyme systems. Enzymes function differently than men. So I don't know. A lot of you might be aware of like genetic differences in different cultures. So it's well known that Asian population genetically is more susceptible to alcoholism, along with the Native American population, and that's based off of a genetic predisposition to the way alcohol is processed. And so they're going to become more dependent more quickly. This is not the same situation, but with women, the enzymes are going to affect drug metabolizing. So, it's important when women are being prescribed medications that they ask the doctors, hey, is this medication metabolized differently for me because I'm a woman? And the doctor might go, well, I don't know. Well, maybe doc, you should learn. Maybe this is a conversation we can have. And again, not to pick on anybody. I don't like being put on the spot, but it's all about you, right? When you're a patient, it's very important that your needs and your considerations are put in the front, not just the doctor's knowledge or the doctor's needs or the doctor's comfort. So anyway, I want to get into the gut-brain connection. As Dr. Danny mentioned during the introduction, there's a deep and complex relationship between our gut and our brain. Dr. Danny, my mom, is fond of saying, trust your gut. I'm always having that sort of silly conversation with my patients about, when we scare the out of you, there's obviously a connection there between the emotional state and its expression in our physicality. So but for women specifically, dealing with, again, the more common gut issues women have, and also the more common mental health challenges that women have, let's go a little bit of a deeper dive into this. So here's a nice picture that I found. On the left-hand side would be the circle of disease, kind of dramatic, but on the right-hand side would be the circle of health. And of course, there's a lot of these circles. A lot of these are interacting with different body systems, and this is a circle, right? So you can enter the circle at any place, and you can leave the circle at any place. Just starting from the top of the disease state, looking at depression, anxiety, and stress, when we're depressed or anxious or stressed, we're going to have hormones released. And, when those hormones are released, it's going to have an effect on different pathways chemically. And those pathways chemically usually are going to, because of the nature of the chemistry and the way that we're, evolved or designed, whatever you want to say, then it's going to have an impact on our intestinal permeability. And that's the gatekeeper that keeps our, as Dr. Danny mentioned in the intro, sort of foreshadowing to zonulin. So that hormonal pathway is going to release zonulin. Zonulin's going to open the gate, and now we have a leaky gut. And welcome to all those who are still joining the class, the meeting. When the gut now is leaky, we get dysbiosis, and those endotoxins, mostly the lipopolysaccharides that if you've been my patient, you've heard me talk about, they then go into the bloodstream. Welcome again to those who are joining. Then that creates inflammation. And that inflammation then creates neuroinflammation. And that neuroinflammation creates depression, anxiety, and stress. And so it's this sort of, self-fulfilling prophecy or closed loop that we need to break at some point. And we can do that through a lot of different ways. But, the way I prefer and the way that I'm trained in, that I feel very excited about, is the gut-brain connection and working through the bacteria, which is really the interface. So when we talk about the gut and the brain, we're really talking about two organ systems, but there's an interface, and that interface is the chemistry and the bacteria and how they affect the chemistry that's being produced. So
everybody understanding, or everybody with us? Don't mean to interrupt, but I just want to make sure. Thumbs up.
We're not really, okay, we got some thumbs up. We're not really looking at everybody. It's hard to see 50 people on the screen. Jennifer maybe is raising her hand. If you don't mind, just because we have quite a few people, we're going to save Q&A for the end, Jennifer. So maybe you can type a question, or we can unmute you at the end. Okay, fair enough. Thank you. So anyway, on the right-hand side, this again would be, a schematic for health. And obviously, if we're in a good mood, we have good sleep and we have good exercise. And I, again, just to backtrack for a second, I had a patient today that I was saying, it's great that we want to do all this work together that's so deep and personal. Are you exercising? Because these sort of sometimes basic things make a big difference. And want to make sure you guys understand self-care is really important. And we're here to help, but exercise matters. So anyway, when we exercise and we have good sleep and we think positive thoughts, we have happiness molecules that are released. Those are serotonin and dopamine, as noted here, along with melatonin. Also, these are immune protective. So again, in the face of different viruses and different immune challenges in the world, we want to make sure that our neurochemistry is good. Then those chemicals are carried to the gut. That then helps us have a diverse microbiome, and so also the diverse microbiome creates those chemistries. And then we have the microbiome metabolizing food. And obviously the bacteria that are in the gut are going to work on digestive health and absorption of nutrients and vitamins from our food. And then, of course, we get stimulation back to our brain. And again, it's this really super exciting closed loop journey. And you can see now with this schematic what we mean when we say the gut is the second brain. I believe there's another statistic that there's maybe as many or more neurotransmitters and neurons in the gut than the brain. So very much so, this is an important thing to talk about, and seems to be, not just particular to women, but women might be affected more often or more dramatically by the changes in the microbiome. And again, the bacteria is the interface. That's the communication. It's not the picture of the intestines. It's what's living inside the intestines. Okay. So what is the intestinal microbiome? The intestinal microbiome is the microbiome. It's the bacteria that is living inside the intestines. Again, we spoke about there's a skin microbiome, there's a vaginal microbiome for those women, there's a lung microbiome, there's all types of microbiomes, but I really study the intestinal microbiome, and it's the bacteria that lives inside of you, and then the environment that those bacteria live inside of. Welcome to those who are joining us. So the microbiome is not just the organisms, but the environment that those organisms live in. And very often, as Dr. Danny was speaking about how we can't change our genes, but we can affect and change the environment that they're living in. Then we can actually affect the expression of those genes. Same thing with the bacteria. So it's really a bigger picture about the environment, not just good bacteria, bad bacteria, but the bigger picture about where they're existing and how they're existing. And remember the diversity of the ecosystem. We want a rainforest. We don't want monocropped. All right. So that's the definition of the intestinal microbiome. We spoke about how it can affect the brain and mental health. Now I wanted to go into a little bit about menopause. And now again, I'm not ever going to go through menopause. So again, I humble myself in speaking to you about this. But essentially, there's hormonal changes that happen with men too. So I'm not totally in the dark here. And what menopause really means is it's a change in the hormones, and a change in the hormones can create symptoms, whether it's anxiety, depression, sexual changes, or bloating. But what really all those are symptoms of the chemical changes that are happening, that are symptoms because of the bacterial changes that happen. So the change in hormones actually affects the bacteria that are living inside of you. And you know what that change usually is a lack of diversity. So very important, again, to have an idea of where you are and where you're going. So I always talk about, how health is a journey, and, it's like, you're going through on a hike or driving from New Jersey to Florida. And how do you're going to get there, or you're on the right way? Well, you got to look at the map, and you want to make sure you're heading in the right direction. So I very often will use, in my practice, I'll use data, and that data comes from testing. So I know that, I know where people are, and then I can kind of navigate them to where they want to be. So I don't want you to feel like this is hopeless. I also don't want you to feel like, you have to be a patient to benefit, because the knowledge is also empowering. And I'm, of course, I'd love to have you guys in the practice, but knowledge is empowering, and just talking about these things, which I'm not sure it gets a lot of radio time, but I think it's getting bigger and louder all the time. So anyway,
If you look up gut and brain connection and menopause and gut issues, I mean, it's amazing the information you'll find today.
so there's also a gut-blood connection, and that really has a lot to do with the bacteria, because again, the bacteria are going to affect metabolism and digestion, and digestive health is going to, those are called macronutrients. Macronutrients, big nutrients, are your carbohydrates, your proteins, your fats, and those have to be broken down when you eat food into, assuming we're eating food, and not, processed chemicals. But anyway, so those foods have to be broken down into micronutrients, and micronutrients are the 32 plus, give or take, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and antioxidants that the trillions of cells use every day. Welcome to those who are joining us. Every day, that all the trillions of cells have to use every day in order to function, right? So we've got all these miraculous and very cool and mapped out biochemical pathways and physiologic mechanisms, how we stay alive and how I'm talking to you and my brain, and it's all working because the cells have what they need. And I always make the joke that my patients are never dead, right? They're always alive, but usually a lot of times they're coming to me because they're not thriving. And so that's the difference between when we're talking about functional wellness or foundational wellness. Like, a lot of my patients do have diagnoses that are relatively severe, but at the end of the day, sometimes people they don't have those diagnoses, and they those diagnoses can be symptoms, or they're told my blood chemistry always looks fine, right? My vitamin D is great, it's 30, the range is 30 to 100. My doctor says my vitamin D is great, I'm at 31. But from a functional perspective, like, I don't know, I always want my car to have new oil and perfect air pressure, and before I go on a long road trip. And so for the journey of life, everyone reserves the right to be an individual. And just because most people might be okay running on empty, you might not be. And that might be because of a genetic influence combined with mental stress, personal stress, who knows, right? Everybody's an individual. So I think there's a big benefit to talking about, suboptimal living and trying to optimize our chemistry through the lens of functional wellness. So anyway, all these nutrients, these micronutrients, are precursor nutrients to keep us happy and healthy. And of course, anxiety and depression is linked to these deficiencies. There's not one study that will say that anxiety and depression is because we don't have enough Prozac, right? Nobody's depressed or anxious because they don't have enough Xanax in their body. There's a whole lot of things that is contributing to that, if it's not a lack of Xanax. And Xanax is wonderful, and Prozac might save lives sometimes. The research is kind of out. It's not so conclusive that they're effective. But when they are, that's great. And there's a time and a place. I'm not putting anything down. But simply stated, there's a lot that can contribute to our everyday experience. So again, there's an interface, complex web of interactions between gut microbiome and bacteria. Veronica, stay with us. Just kidding. So there's a complex web. You just happen to be the face on my screen right now. There's a complex web of interactions that happens between the cellular nutrition and the gut diversity. So I say, like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know. Who cares? Let's cook them both. They both taste good. But seriously,
You're vegetarian.
look at this. Look at this picture, right? So here we have, again, sort of a schematic, a visual aid to explain to us, to show us how all these things can be interrelated, right? We have a symptom of fatigue. What's the cause? Micronutrient deficiencies. We have a symptom of, infertility. What's the cause? We have a symptom of anxiety. We have a symptom of gastrointestinal health. What's the cause? And honestly, you can also, I would actually argue, and I could have put another picture in, that I could put gastrointestinal health in the middle and draw all these lines, because it's not one size fits all. And I don't know what comes first. Oftentimes it's both that matter. And I've yet to test a patient that's perfect. So there's always work to do, and there's always some vulnerability that we can improve on. And through reducing your vulnerabilities, a lot of times we get a big change in your quality of life. And that's what we're here to do, to teach you guys what you guys have at your fingertips through knowing us, through interacting with us or not, and just from being touched by the information and then going on your own journey. So we're going to get into the gut gene connection now. I'm going to give the mic over to Dr. Danny. Enjoy the ride.
Hey, good to be back. So I want to go back to MTHFR and discuss a little bit more in depth about MTHFR, methylene tetrahydrate folate reductase. So I want you to think about, I want to talk a little bit about the mutations in MTHFR. And I want you to imagine, if you will, that DNA is a cookbook, okay? And the recipes in the cookbook are your genes. And the very first recipe calls for butter, but there's a typo, and that typo is that butter, for some reason, became oil. And so that recipe, it didn't work out so well. It still is okay because butter is similar, or oil is similar to butter, but it's not what it was supposed to be. And all the other recipes that call for butter in that cookbook, in that DNA cookbook, that typo continued throughout all those other recipes, and also oil was written there. So some of the recipes were just disastrous because of that typo or that mutation, so to speak. Some of the recipes, just that slight change didn't matter that much. Well, that's really what a mutation is.
1 second.
Yes.
I'm sorry. We didn't see the slide with the medications.
No, I think we missed a slide.
I just want to go back. This is kind of important. Here it is. Yeah, I skipped the slide real quick. Sorry, guys. I just want to share this with you because this was pertinent to women specifically.
We talked about PPI.
Yeah, we did. But men don't take oral contraceptives typically. I don't know there's one that exists. I think they were working on one, but either way, birth control typically is taken by women of birthing age. And a lot of women take NSAIDs like all people. And I just want to talk specifically about it is not inconclusive. It is absolutely conclusive that hormonal birth control
I'm so glad you
reduces the biodiversity of the gut microbiome, which then leads to depression, anxiety, and unresolved digestive issues. So I'm not saying there's not a purpose for birth control. If a woman can get away with non-hormonal birth control, she'll be giving herself less things to be challenged with. But if that's not an option, which it may or may not be, we just have to realize that it might be more relevant then for you to keep a closer eye on on your grandchildren or your children or yourself, on your microbiome, because it's not a lost cause. It's not like, oh, that's what happens and there's nothing to be done. Yes, that's what happens. And knowing that we're doing that to ourselves, then there's a lot that we can do. So PPIs do the same thing, really reduces the diversity and procreates the wrong bacteria. And common non-steroidal anti-inflammatory pain meds like ibuprofen does the same thing, along with increasing intestinal permeability, which is leaky gut, which goes back to the slide we talked about before, this guy right here, where then those toxins leak into the blood, creating inflammation. So many of us also have pain and inflammation. I'm sorry for that interruption. I just wanted to
I'm glad you
to speak about that.
It's an important one. It's a very important one. So going back to the vulnerabilities, and thinking about this one specific vulnerability of MTHFR. There are other vulnerabilities. So before we get really into the vulnerability of what happens with MTHFR in our body, if we do show positive in a variant of this gene mutation, I wanted to speak about a few other vulnerabilities that may happen. Now, first of all, when we're talking about foundational wellness, a good foundation in any building is a requirement for any structure. Everybody, I think, agrees to that. So if there's cracks in the foundation, or the roof has a hole in it, or the windows are not up to par, up to code, a storm comes, that building, that house is going to be damaged. There's going to be some damage. Same thing with our bodies. We want to make sure that the foundation is strong. We don't have cracks in our foundation. Our roof doesn't have a hole in it. So that's what I'm talking about with vulnerability. So what are some other vulnerabilities? Well, nutrient deficiencies can be caused by stress, medications, as we just noted, poor diet choices, Coffee, by the way, causes a huge vulnerability and nutrient deficiencies. Remember, coffee has no nutrient value. If you look at the can of coffee, it doesn't have a nutritional panel, but it does cause a lot of nutrient deficiencies. Alcohol, similarly. And then gut issues cause a lot of vulnerabilities, especially leaky gut, like elevated zonulin, or maybe a pathogen may show up. And then that can cause a lot of inflammation. Well, that makes you more vulnerable. And right now with the pandemic, gosh, we don't want to be vulnerable. We have so many other things to think about, and now we have this thrown at us. And this past year has just been, we've been warriors, right? And then we have, as women, the hormonal shifts. That makes us extremely vulnerable. It's a roller coaster ride that we're on, and the roller coaster ride can go slowly up and it feels not so bad, but then we drop down and we're up and we're down, and that can be pretty scary at times. And then environmental issues. So anybody ever hear of xenoestrogens? Raise your hand. Xenoestrogens are the estrogens that come from the outside but impact us in a negative way. And so if we're drinking water from a plastic water bottle, that can be pretty devastating to us, and really like a toxic load. What do you dye your hair? You know, what are you putting on your skin? What makeup are you using? So these would all be considered a toxic load and cause a vulnerability. So now I want to talk a little bit more about MTHFR and more specific about it and that vulnerability. So MTHFR is a gene that holds the recipe, if you will, for an enzyme that helps to convert a vitamin called vitamin B9, also known as folate. Some of you have heard of folate. Folate is rich in green foods. Well, it converts it into a usable form called methylfolate, and that process is called methylation. The M in methylation is that M in MTHFR. Now, it's important to note that folate, when you look at a lot of food labels, you'll see folic acid on the label. That is a synthesized chemical, man-made mirror image, if you will, of folate. And people with this gene mutation, MTHFR, it's been shown that it's very difficult for us to handle that folic acid, that man-made form of folate. So if you have this mutated gene, the capacity to convert that vitamin B9 into folate is reduced. And I think that this is an amazing percentage. And I don't know how many of you realize this, but from 40 to 70%, it's reduced. So depending on the variant that you have, now we could talk about the different variants and in a minute. Just move to the next slide. But this information about converting folate and the lack of being able to convert folate is huge, because, and also other B vitamins like usable B12. Now, many people know B12 helps us to feel energy, and if we feel energetic, we're less depressed, right? And the B vitamins are actually produced in the gut. And then you have MTHFR that's not allowing these B vitamins to be converted. We have more of a problem with neurotransmitter production. Neurotransmitters help us feel good up here. So there's a huge connection with our digestive system and problems in the digestive system. So that the MTHFR and the mutations and not allowing this conversion of our B vitamins is a huge negative. There are over 50 types of MTHFR. Well, let me go back to folic acid for a minute. You'll find the words enriched with folic acid on a lot of food labels. I think many of you, raise your hand, many of you have seen that enriched word. That means that that product most likely was so refined and so processed that the folate, the natural folate, was actually pulled out. And so they had to enrich it. Well, guess what? They didn't enrich it with folate, the natural form of that vitamin B9, but with folic acid, the man-made form. And again, many scientists feel that this causes a disruption and an issue. So there are over 50 types of gene mutations possible with MTHFR. However, we're only going to speak about the two that are most studied. And those two are the C677T and the A1298C. It's good. No, we're good. And then the other bit of information that I wanted to impart to you is that if you do find out that you do have a variant of this mutation, one of the variants being C677T and the other one A1298C, did you get one copy from mom and maybe a normal copy from dad, which would be heterozygous, or are you homozygous having two copies of the same mutation, the riskiest being the C677T? That variant is more troublesome, so to speak, than the A1298C, and then compounded. Now, many people do show that they're compounded, and a lot of times I can guess who those people will be, even before they test. They have a lot of digestive issues. They have a lot of anxiety. And these two things seem to go hand in hand with one variant copy, A1298C, from either mom or dad, and one copy of C677T. That would be compounded. What I find interesting is that over 80% of the population has at least one of the variants. You want to move? Sorry. Sorry.
Is that the one you want, or you want this one?
No, that's it.
That's huge, or?
No, that's it. Yeah, researchers. So I wanted to give you a list. Everybody can see this list of a lot of the studies that have been done connecting MTHFR mutations with health challenges. And I'm not going to read through the list, but you'll see on the list that specific for women, infertility, miscarriage, fibromyalgia tends to be a huge problem with it's a huge challenge with a lot of women that call me. It just seems to be that they tell me a lot of their challenges and they throw in, oh, and by the way, I have fibromyalgia, migraines, neurologic diseases, and unfortunately, a lot of cancers are connected. But the three bullet points that I wanted to discuss right now with MTHFR would be the anxiety, depression connection, stress challenges. It seems like a lot of the women that I speak to with MTHFR mutations are more sensitive to their stresses. They don't hold up as well. The stresses bring them down more. And then they also have a lot of gut and digestive issues. We see elevated zonulin in these women, which again is leaky gut, leaky brain. But here's the good news. Our DNA is not our destiny. And the sooner you can find out if this vulnerability is problematic for you, the sooner you can help your future health. We can't change our DNA, but we can change the environment that it's in. So a lot of researchers, believe that good nutrition, specific great nutrition supplement protocol, positive lifestyle choices, these can all help modulate the effects of having a mutation and allowing us to live a much healthier, happier life. Basically withstanding the storm so we don't blow over when it hits us. Better digestion, less pain and inflammation, less anxiety, less depression, better sleep, and a lot more energy. So, I feel it's like super important to be proactive and not reactive. And, traditionally, sorry about that, changing my notes around here. Traditionally, a person goes to the doctor. Why? Because they have symptoms. And what does the doctor do? Treats the symptoms. And that's wonderful. Sometimes we really need to treat our symptoms. But today, people are looking not only to manage illness with our specific personalized treatment plans, which I think are so important, but they're also seeking to achieve a much more higher level of wellness, as Dr. Noah spoke about. We just don't want to be alive. We want to really thrive well and beyond that. So for you women, a great saying, and so many of you, I see these beautiful faces out there. 60 is the new 40, right? Or maybe it's the new 30. I don't know. Maybe, 70, because I'm already halfway through 60. 70 is maybe the new 30. But we want to keep on feeling good. We want our brains to feel good. We want to be happy. We want to be energetic. We got to take care of our gut. And there's a step-by-step process. Testing is so helpful because we find out exactly what our needs are. And then a simple step is to look at MTHFR. So that's why I wanted to bring it to your attention. And I'm going to let Dr. Noah take over from here. And
so hopefully
we'll speak again.
you guys don't notice what I notice right now, which is the word prevention is spelled really poorly. But I made it all the way through without so many mistakes. So I see that now it's spelled bad. But anyway, those things always bother me. But yeah, so we've got strategies for recovery and disease prevention. Certainly don't want everyone to think like, oh no, so those are the problems and there's nothing we can do about it. So yeah, we put together some programs. They're listed on the right-hand side, specifically the microbiome recovery program, which includes the stool analysis, the DNA stool analysis of the bacteria and the environment they're living in, the cellular chemistry micronutrient replenishment program, which can include the MTHFR analysis, micronutrient analysis, and the heavy metal detox for the hair analysis. So these are all, programs that we utilize specific testing for to come up with precise, personalized, individualized programs of recovery for you guys as individuals. And we just wanted to kind of make everything really sweet. So just so you guys know, just for showing up tonight, again, if you didn't receive if you're here, you should have received the email with the link, and the email with the link also had included 4 free health resources. That was my ebook that I wrote on the microbiome, which has tons of mind-blowing information and aha moments. Dr. Danny's Mindful Plate, which is, really important to put on your fridge and live by. I put together a nutrigenomic document. So what that means is how we can use nutrition and lifestyle to affect our genetic expression geared towards gut health. Really cool stuff. Of course, it's not specific. We don't know if you have those mutations, but as a general resource, I think it's amazing and could be very helpful. And then we gave you the burp test information, which can be helpful in figuring out, potential ways to improve your digestion and cellular nutrient absorption and to begin your journey towards gut recovery. We also gave you a 10% off Healthy Times Market coupon. So just make sure you guys get those resources. And then if you are interested in becoming patients or clients, we just wanted to offer you some incentive there. We always feel like we want to support those who support themselves. So we support you in doing that, and we do so by giving some discounts on the work we do. So we're happy to give $100 off of the whole foundational wellness program, which is both the GI map as well as the blood chemistry analysis. We're happy to give $50 off the cornerstone testing, which is one or the other, and then $25 off if you want to do the MTHFR screening, and $50 off if you want to do heavy metal testing. And just, no pressure, nothing like that, not a sales technique or hard sales call. Just if you reach out to us and you say, hey, remember ladies night? And we'll be like, yeah, we do. You ready? And you'll be like, yeah, and I want my discount. We'll be like, okay. So, we just want to support you in doing that if you're ever interested. And I just want to leave this up for a little bit of time. You guys can certainly take pictures of this or screenshot it, or otherwise, we'll have plenty of time for questions. Otherwise, I'll leave this here, and I'm gonna do my best to unmute everybody, and don't all shout at once. But let's see if we can make this happen. Let me just see. Hold on. Okay. Ask all to I'm gonna allow you guys to unmute yourselves. So if you have a question, go ahead and unmute yourself. I see there's 2 hands up, Jennifer and Courtney. Let's go with Jennifer or Courtney. I forget who had their hand up first, but let's see what happens. Jennifer, you did. Go ahead, Jennifer. Yeah.
Oh, where I can't even see myself. I actually don't have a question. I just wasn't sure how to give a thumbs up. I'm sorry.
Well, that was awesome.
Everything was really great, though.
Thanks, Jennifer. Well, I know how to do this too, and I don't know how to do it on the screen, so we're good.
I don't know how to do it on the screen. I couldn't figure it out.
All right.
Okay.
Courtney, you have a question?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi. I have I'm actually perimenopausal right now. And
Congratulations.
I know. It's wonderful. I had a child, so I went through all of that. I am also on antidepressants, and I have IBS. I have to be tested for celiac or Crohn's or, what do you recommend as far as healing the stomach?
Sure.
So,
So
like, heal your
Question.
mind. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
No,
Since they're- Where do you start?
Sure. That's a great question. And I just want to remind everybody that there are approximately 25 people in this room. So if you're sharing personal information, everyone I believe is hearing you. So that's, just so you're aware. And also, I don't know how interested everybody, I don't know how many questions there are going to be. We'll give about 10 minutes. These are all good questions, Courtney. It's a great question. I just want you to be aware that everyone's listening. And
I think mental health there should be no, the stigma needs to go.
Sure, no problem, no problem. Just wanted to make everybody aware. So anyway, so to keep it short and sweet, and I don't like answering questions, this is a very important question, a very deep question, but I would say a good place to start was to be here with us tonight. And so you've already started. And just getting that information, now you know that there are next steps. And without sounding, like full of myself, I would say the next step for you would be to enroll in the program, get the data so that we can make, educated clinical decisions for you based off of your data, as opposed to just saying, well, have you tried ashwagandha? Because there's plenty of free advice at the health food store, which you're welcome to seek, and Google and everything else. But as far as precision medicine, which I'm a big fan of, really requires the data. And so, obviously exercise, sleep,
exercise,
good food, right? Those are all basics. I think that's an appropriate answer for this forum. Courtney, if you want to have a free consultation with either me or Dr. Danny, that's open to you as well. So you can schedule a half hour with me off my website or Dr. Danny. So go ahead and do that too. And we can start that way as well and go into you more as a personal thing. Okay.
Yeah. My father-in-law is Bob Manning. He actually works with,
Sure.
Dr. Steele. Yep.
Absolutely. Well, we're honored to have him in the practice.
So, well, if they can help him, they can.
He's not my hardest case. Courtney, I'm gonna ask just I don't mean to cut you off. I just want to be respectful of everybody's time. Okay, Veronica, did you have a question? Thank you, Courtney.
No, I'm good.
Okay, Joan, did you have a question? No. All right. Does anybody else have any? I thought people were unmuting. Maybe Rachel. If you guys are unmuting, Rachel
yeah.
has a question.
Hi, I have a question.
Hi, Rachel.
So if I wanted to get involved in one of these programs, which sounds like something I definitely want to take action with.
Sure.
Do I have to go into an office? Where are you located? Is it
That's
done
a great question.
Through mail, or how do I get started?
So
this is my first time at one of these things, and
Sure.
Jen got me onto it. I'm Jen's mom.
All right. Well, welcome. So, I'll answer that. It's pretty simple. I actually serendipitously converted my whole practice to be a remote practice like 4 months before the world blew up, and then the world blew up.
Smart.
And then it was like,
Okay.
oh, well, I'm just going to keep on keeping on. And the beauty of this type of medicine, it really stemmed out of my interest to help more people than I could access in my own, 5-mile radius. Right. So yeah, my office is in Florida. You certainly don't need to be in Florida. I have patients all across America, but mostly the East Coast, because that's where we have a footprint. Essentially it's like this. There's a process of intake. So there's minimal forms, a little health history, and then we get your data. So, you pay, I pay for all the lab fees. And then the kits get drop shipped to you, or you can pick them up at our health food store in New Jersey. And then you distribute the samples. We can connect you with phlebotomists for the blood draw. Other tests are done from the comfort of your own home.
And if I could just interject for just a second here. So you can either contact the office, Dr. Noah's office, and get the ball rolling, or you can contact me. Either one of us can just get the ball rolling for you. The phlebotomist, if you decide to do the micronutrient testing, which is amazing, if you are in the Healthy Times Northwest New Jersey area there, we've been working with a phlebotomist who is amazing. She'll come to your home, but no matter where you are, we'll find the phlebotomist to help you out.
Yeah, I'm more like Central South Jersey.
Okay, so we
I know
would-
Jen is up closer to you guys, but
Right, right. We
on
would
the
locate
south.
that phlebotomist. for-
Yeah, there's a national network. I mean, you know, depending on what state you're in, you know, different access to different aspects of healthcare, but generally we can find, you know, someone that's less than 20 miles away that will come to your house. So
That's great.
typically not an issue. Yeah, so that's great. And
Good.
honestly, like, both my mom and myself, like, we have, you know, free consultations. So if you just want to take the next step and you have more questions, just go on our websites and say, hey, I need some time, and then boom, you're in. So that's it. We're not
Okay.
hiding from anybody.
And the other thing I wanted to
Excellent.
mention is that one thing that I'm really, really proud of Noah about, and myself, but really he really made me aware of this. When you enroll with working with him or myself or us together as a team, you don't get us for one shot. In other words, you're not going to just get your results back and we're going to just say, okay, you need this, this, and this, and off you go. It's really months of working together.
It's designed as a coaching program. So essentially it's a remote practice. In essence, it's a health coaching program. You know, it's not about right or wrong, good or bad, deficient or replenished. It's about, can we coach you over a period of time to using your data and either managing chronic disease or getting you to a recovery state that you're happy with, and then you're educated enough to be able to self-care.
Right.
Now, you know, you don't live in a vacuum. I always tell people it shouldn't be one and done. In essence, I want you in the practice for life, because life is a journey, health is a journey, and you don't live in a bubble. So it's dynamic, right? It's like everyone goes to the doctor and they get their blood drawn once a year, and there's not a lot you can see from that blood, but they do it anyway. And everyone goes to the dentist twice a year, you know, for maintenance. So that kind of,
I believe in a lot of these. There's so many new tests right now, DNA tests, everything, even like the Genomind and all these other tests that are out there that a lot of people don't know about. So
Yes.
this is great. This is
Yeah.
right
Well,
up my alley. And I think Jen knew that.
thank you for
Which she invited
your
me.
enthusiasm and for spending time with us tonight.
Thank
Does
you.
anybody else? Does Anna Marie, Diana? Okay, so guys, if you're Diana does, and I think Anna Marie was raising her hand, I'm not sure, but if you are raising your hand, go ahead and unmute yourself. I've allowed you to unmute yourself and just go for it. Let's go. We got two people. Okay, so Anna Marie, let's just go with Diana first, just because we saw her unmute first. Okay, go ahead, Diana.
First, I want to say my family has worked with both Dr. Noah and Dr. Danny, and it is amazing what you can uncover and find. And I think it's a continuing journey. You're always learning, and what you find is amazing. And I'm ever grateful for what they have done for my family. And I'm
Thank
still
you so
learning. I'm here. I'm still learning.
Thank you so much for sharing. Anna Marie, go ahead.
So I just wanted to say thank you so much. I'm so glad I attended tonight. I definitely am going to continue, you know, working with both you and Dr. Danny. I feel you have helped me just come into clarity more. So I'm grateful, but I did just want to exit at this point and just, you know, give you my thanks for giving us your time.
Yeah, well, thanks for making it. I know it wasn't
Thank you.
wasn't easy for everyone to be here, especially so thank you.
Thank you. And I'll be in touch very shortly.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right,
Bye, everyone.
ladies. Does anybody else have any other questions or anything before I end the meeting? Not that it's last chance. You guys can always reach out to us,
Yes,
but
please do.
I think Zoom is a hard platform to stay focused for so long. We've been in here for about an hour, so really, really appreciate you all.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Are you guys ready for me to end this?
Yes, thank you.
Hi,
for the
Kathy.
invitation.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Everybody stay well.
Yeah.
You too.
Bye. Thank you.